Would you believe if I told you that adventure protects us? It's kind of a strange claim because most of the time when we think about adventure, we think about something that has uncertain results, so it's probably kind of risky. So, how is it that we can be more protected if we go into an adventure? Isn't that kind of strange? Okay, but listen, there is a way to explain this, but I'll need to give you a little bit of context so that you can understand what it is. My wife and I, we have been digital nomads for the last 14 years. And this means naturally that we have been traveling around the world. We've been to 74 countries during this time, and this is a big part of our adventure, let's say. And this is naturally our big adventure in our lives. Recently, a person has asked us what was the biggest trouble that we've ever had during these 14 years. I mean, traveling around the world. What kind of situation was like the worst thing that ever happened to us during this time? So I began to think about this question, and I was thinking for a long time until I realized that I couldn't really come up with an answer to this question because I couldn't actually remember any time during these 14 years where we really faced something so drastic that I could use to answer that question. And to me, that this was kind of a surprise and a shock because, I mean, traveling around, going into the world like this, I would assume that I would really have to face some big problems, some unexpected things. But it turns out that no, this is not what happened at all. In fact, after a long time thinking about this, eventually I could come up with like one thing that I could remember. Oh yeah, that was like, whoa. But the funny thing is that this one thing was actually in Brazil, where I come from. So I cannot even say that it was because I got into the world, because this happened in my very country. So, well, in the end, I couldn't really find a good answer, which again was a surprise to me. So then I began to realize, oh, actually, this whole adventure, it has actually protected us from a lot of things that we would have to face if we were still living like a regular life in Brazil. And there is one thing in particular that I will mention here that will, I believe, exemplify this quite well. So you probably have seen some people that sometimes complain that they feel like stuck. They can't really achieve anything in their lives because they feel like every time they try to do something, they are kind of dragged by some problem of other people, maybe some people in their families or some friend. People come with some kind of problem and then they have to deal with the problem of this other person, and they can never really do the things that they want so badly to do. And this happens often, like in our family. So sometimes people just have like, I don't know, like our siblings or parents, they have some kind of issue they bring to us and we try to help. And in the process of trying to help, we eventually lose a lot of time. We waste a lot of time dealing with their problems and we don't invest enough time in our own project. And this is something that happens quite often. And we would think, oh, poor person that can't get anything done because all the time somebody else is bringing some problem to this person. But it turns out that maybe the problem is with the person. This is more a consequence of the attitude of this person that is accepting all of those demands than the problem of the people asking for the things themselves. I will tell you why. One thing that we realized as we were traveling around the world is that often in our own family, some situations would arise where they somehow would need our help, and situations where they would normally ask for our help and we would normally get involved in their issues and we would try to fix the issues for themselves, and we would try to solve the issues for them. But since now, in those last 14 years, we were far from them, they couldn't reach us anymore and ask for those kinds of help. And then what happened was that they had to figure out a way to solve the problem themselves. And you would think, oh, so it's worse for them. right? Because now they have to actually deal with the problem and they don't have our help anymore. But it turns out that often what happened is that they also benefited by the fact that we were not there anymore and that now they had to deal with the issues themselves. And how did they benefit of this? Well, in the past, they kind of used us as, like something that you just use as a support. And now, since they don't have this support anymore, they really don't have any other way than basically developing the skills they need to solve their own problems. So you might think this is bad for them, but actually this is great for them, because what we could see over those years is that several of our family members, they actually developed new skills that they didn't have before because we were in the way, because we were doing some things for them that now, because they don't have us anymore around, they just have to learn how to do this. And this is actually great news for them, because once they develop these skills, they become more competent and they become more autonomous to deal with those things. So it turns out that in the end of the day, the fact that we were living our own adventure, first of all, protected us against wasting time with issues of other people that they could handle themselves. But not only that, it helped those people to develop the necessary skills and become competent to deal with the issues themselves. So everybody wins. That's very strange. It was kind of unexpected, right? But all of this happened because we had our own adventure. In the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that if you are this person that feels like you are being dragged by the problems of other people all the time, maybe the reason why this happened is because you didn't find yet your own adventure. Or maybe you found, but you just still didn't jump into this adventure. Maybe you're afraid of it or something. But the fact that you are not living your adventure means that you are not protected enough against all of those demands that keep coming your way. Because trust me, if a person sees, if a person around you, friend, family, whatever, if they see that you are kind of available, most of the time, when they have some issues, they will probably choose you to ask for help than choosing somebody else that is just too busy dealing with their own adventure. In other words, if you don't have your own adventure, you will become part of the adventure of another people. You will become part of the adventure of another person. Inevitably, you either have your own adventure or you will live the adventure of other people. But there is a big difference here, and this is absolutely crucial. When you are living your own adventure, you did this voluntarily. You chose it. It is your adventure. When you are living the problems of other people, when you are dealing with the issues of other people, when you are living the adventure of another person, you are basically reacting to some demand that they did. So most of the time, this is not exactly voluntary. You didn't choose to participate in that. You were kind of dragged into their adventure, so much so that we actually say this, oh, I feel that I was dragged, I'm being dragged by the problems of all of those other people around me. Yeah, sure. The reason is because normally we don't have our own adventure. So this is very important to notice. Sometimes we are afraid to embark into an adventure because we are afraid of the uncertainties, we are afraid of the risks. And what we don't realize is that we actually are into a much bigger risk. We are facing a much bigger risk just because we don't actually have our own adventure. And then, even if you decide to go into your real adventure, the thing that you really chose for yourself, you might find out that it's actually much safer than you would imagine, like exactly happened with us. When we look to this 14 years, we were astonished to realize that we didn't really face any kind of serious issue, so much so that we couldn't even remember what was like a big thing that happened that was so bad during those 14 years. Couldn't remember that. that. It was basically super safe, even traveling for 74 countries. And sometimes people want to embark in some adventures that doesn't even involve going to other countries, doesn't even involve that much uncertainty, you know? And they are so afraid. And what I want to tell you is that if you are willing, if you are interested in embarking in something that feels like frightening, think twice. Maybe you should be more afraid of not going into the adventure and still be this kind of person that is too available to other people so that they can drag you into their adventures. So be careful, because a real adventure, the one that we choose, can actually be extremely protective.